Welcome, residents, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is Dr. DC, and joining me for the start of Fanagar week and all of our mailbag episodes is my wife, Mrs. DC.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you for joining.
My absolute pleasure.
Every year in June, which is Fanagar, our Fan Appreciation Month. That's a fun one. Huh?
It is a good one. I see what you did.
Validate me.
I see what you did there.
Every year, for the last several, we do a week where every day has an episode out. There's short ones pulled from the mailbag, so there's no specific topic. But also because it's a special fun week, why not have some special fun guests / guest hosts? So you're it, baby.
Oh, look out. I'm glad that I'm the best you could do this week.
Yes, and every week, and not in a bad way.
Look out.
So, I don't know, do you have any, new business before we just get into it? Or?
Absolutely no business. My comic book knowledge is the same as it was last time I graced this medium with you on this fantastic show. It's about the same, and I'll do my best to contribute as best as I can. Marriage.
That's all I can ask. So, all right, I'll let you take it away because you're my Richard today.
All right,
or I guess I should say he's my you on every other podcast recording.
Literally anytime that you and I are not physically together, Richard is your me. And, I've just come to live with it after this long.
Yeah, so is he.
All right. So let's grab into the ye old mailbag. We're going to start with Facebook.
Going to the face and the book, going to the Facebook.
Our first question is from Stacy Vanier.
My mom.
Say, AKA your mom. My gorgeous mother-in-law. Yeah. She asks, what impact do mothers have on their superhero children? Other than Martha Kent, are there any examples of motherly influence and love?
Look at that.
Look at that. What a beautiful question.
Why did you say that name?
Why did you say that name? That's my mother's name. All right, continue. So do any examples? Are there any examples of moms that actually love their children in the superhero universe? I have a quick one.
Sure, go for it.
Via new Aquaman,
right?
Gorgeous Nicole Kidman and her love for Arthur and giving it all up and getting sacrificed to the trench. That is the example I can think of.
Queen Atlanta is a great example. In the comics, slightly different. Maybe not quite as lovely story, but Queen Atlanta is a good one. I mean, there's sort of two ways to answer this. There's what impact do mothers have on their children? And the unfortunate answer is a lot of them die. Or, it never used to be the case, but since 2009, for Barry, a big thing for him is that his mom was killed.
Yeah.
Before 2009, he just had parents and they were fine. And he had a fine childhood and nothing bad ever happened to him until he was struck by lightning and he got an even better life. So, but in 2009, that's where the idea that Reverse Flash went back in time, killed his mom, made that a thing. That's only as recent as that is. Arguably a huge impact on Barry. But only in the fridging way where it's because she had to die for his character development. You know what I mean?
Well, here's an odd take. I might be off, and apologies to your listenership if this is wrong, but I'm looking at the words motherly influence.
Okay.
Could that account for someone like Granny Goodness and Big Barda? Even though it's not superhero.
Well, and Granny Goodness is sort of like a chilling one because that's her whole vibe, right? Is being Granny knows best or whatever, but she's horrible to the kids in the like the orphanage. It's like a torture orphanage. She's training the female Fury. She's making these fighters, people that are thralls to her, and then in turn thralls to Darkseid and stuff. She's like a perversion of all of that motherly influence. But there's this, like, I think when it's written well, people like Scott and Barta both kind of look at her and still feel a little bit like she's their mom, you know, like other people that maybe have toxic parents and stuff like that. Like there's still this weird kind of like that she's still kind of that figure for them.
Okay.
So that's a great like weird example. Like maybe not, it's not in the same camp as Martha Kent, right?
Yeah.
But Granny Goodness undeniably has that kind of influence on people. Just it's usually in a more kind of negative way. I'd make the argument for well, also tricky, but there's a slight argument you could make maybe for Talia al Ghul with Damien.
Yes.
It also like she also like had him killed by one of his own clones, like shit like that. Like it's not great, but there is a kind of like she has an influence on him, and again that kind of weird relationship, and that goes up to Ra's al Ghul too, a sort of weird relationship, weird dynamic between all of the sort of involved parties there.
Weird deep cut thing. Since not Sin City, Watchmen, they're still DC, right?
Yeah.
What about the mother-daughter pairing there, where the daughter takes over as I can't remember the names, but you know what I'm talking about.
Spectre, yeah.
Silk Spectre, thank you. I was going to say Silk Stocking. That is not a thing.
I mean, it's not far. So that's an interesting one. I mean, again, that's a pretty fraught relationship. I mean, a big chunk of Watchmen is about how Laurie, the daughter, was sort of forced into being Silk Spectre by her mother. And like a big part of her journey is learning about her mom as a superhero and what happened to her with the comedian and all this kind of stuff. But those characters are loosely based on both Nightshade, which was an old Charlton character, and Black Canary, who for a long time in continuity was two characters. There's the Golden Age Black Canary, Dinah Drake,
yes,
who had no powers. And then there's the Silver Age Black Canary, Dinah Laurel Lance, who has the sonic scream and stuff like that, and is in love with Oliver Queen, and the one that we're familiar with.
Yes.
There's a very complicated history there, including at one point a wizard and a body swap and a few other weird things. It's possible that in the current continuity, Dinah Drake exists again, like the Golden Age Black Canary. But that idea of like sort of stepping into the mother's shoes, carrying on the legacy is there. But I don't think the Black Canary one had the same fraught vibe as Silk Spectre. But great examples. Both of them are great examples.
Look at me reaching into the recesses of my knowledge to figure it out and remember random things. Look at me go.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, let's just run down some moms here. Probably a better way to phrase that.
Well,
do you know what? I'm not even sure I can name Hal Jordan's mom. Yeah, Martha Kent, obviously. Martha Wayne. We know what happens to her.
Mama Grayson, and we know what happens to her.
We know what happens to her and Papa Grayson. Yeah, of course. Tim Drake's mom is also dead. He only has his dad until his dad is killed by Captain Boomerang. Yeah, I mean, moms generally don't fare well.
It's like Disney princesses. Superheroes and Disney princesses, the moms don't do well. And the mom figures that are there are awful.
It's true. There's a lot that don't do well, but I'm pretty proud of that list. I think that's a good one. So look
at us go.
Yeah.
10 points. So shall we move on to our next question?
Let's do it.
We're going to kick it over to Twitter.
That's Twitter.
To our dear listener, James Paulson.
Ooh, the senator.
By the time of the Legion of Superheroes, the Lantern Corps seem to have, for the most part, disappeared. Is what happened to them ever discussed, or is it left to the imagination? Are the Legion rings in any way related to the rings of the various Lantern Corps?
Yeah, so in the 31st century, it used to be the 30th century, but time moves on. When the Legion of Superheroes exist, there is no Green Lantern Corps. As far as we can tell, there's no Lantern Corps other than the relatively newly established Gold Lantern. Yeah, the lanterns are gone. I think it is, if you listen back through episodes, there's probably an episode where I go, nobody knows what happened to them. And then an episode where I talk about something that happened to them. And the truth is, I never 100% remember. And the part of the problem with that is that the Legion has so many reboots and incarnations. And I find, even more than regular continuity, I find Legion continuity really hard to track. But in general, no. The Green Lantern Corps is disbanded, is gone by the time of the Legion of Superheroes. The only kind of real remnants of it, one had to do with Universo, who was a Legion of Superheroes villain, and the other one is the Emerald Empress. Now, she has this floating giant eyeball that accompanies her, that's like the source of her power. It's called the Emerald Eye of Ekron, and it's basically meant to be some kind of adjacent power to the old Green Lanterns.
Okay.
It mostly just shoots eyeball. Like, you don't see constructs and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, for the most part, the lanterns are all gone in the Legion's future. The specifics of that, I think, are a little fuzzy generally, and certainly made fuzzier by continuity changes. Now, the Legion rings are not connected specifically to lantern rings.
So it's not like every corps has their planet and their emotion and their followers, and it's not as culty as all that?
No, because the Legion is they're like the Justice League, but across the universe.
Okay.
But the Legion flight rings are made with a metal that is, in part, it's like an alloy of nth metal. Nth metal is used by Hawkman and Hawkgirl. It has anti-gravity properties and like magic negating properties. So essentially the Legion ring has those anti-gravity pieces in it. That's why it's a Legion flight ring. The other things the ring can do is that kind of like general, you can survive in space, like the real basic set of things. So not unreasonable to wonder if they work like lantern rings, but as far as I can tell and has been said, it's not like Owen technology. It's not the same kind of thing as a Green Lantern ring.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. So basically it's there's some shadows of Lantern Corps, but it's not a direct correlation.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, oh, I remember Tales of the Lantern, a lot of like that kind of like in the old days.
I didn't realize that the Lantern Corps disappear. I know nothing about that, and that mildly breaks my heart because that's my favorite Lego video game, is when you go to all the different planets. And that makes me sad that they get rid of that.
Well, I mean, it's only in that far future, right? We still have plenty. There's, an abundance of lanterns in the present era.
It doesn't soften the blow for me somehow.
Oh, okay. Well,
it doesn't soften it. Don't like that.
There you go.
All right. So we'll move on to our next question, and we're heading on over to Reddit,
where everyone's nice and no one's ever mean.
Not ever. And this question comes from the Golden Ganji. Who are the biggest scumbags of the DC universe? Ooh. There are all kinds of villains, but who goes above and beyond? Who do other villains look down on? You guys have mentioned the Slade Terra situation in the past and Captain Boomerang's reputation as a jerk. What are some others?
Yeah, Captain Boomerang is sort of king of the scumbags in DC. He's a drunk and he's a misogynist, and it's funny in DC where you have these villains who's like, I have no hesitation killing, and I want to like burn the world down or whatever. And like Captain Boomerang, they'd be like he'd like grope a woman at a bar. They'd be like, dude, even these villains are like, come on, Jesus Christ.
In that vein, and I don't know what it's like in the comics, but again, my comic book experience is all like cartoons and stuff that we watch, right, for the most part. I think back to Batman animated series,
right,
and I think about Jervis Tetch, and he's just this creepy weird guy that nobody really likes, and he's pretentious and he kidnaps women, and he thinks he's better than he is. And like, I don't know if it's scumbaggery, but it's just like, what a douche.
Maybe not scumbag territory, but certainly partly in the vibe of maybe a villain other villains look down on a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's almost two separate questions too, because, you know, in Year of the Villain, there's this, I think, really well executed story about the Riddler. So in Year of the Villain, Lex Luthor had sort of risen to a higher level of being. And he was going around and he was giving like upgrades and tech and weapons and stuff to different villains, inviting them to be part of kind of what the Legion of Doom was doing. And though, but he didn't go visit the Riddler. And there's this whole story about the Riddler being like, am I a joke? Like the Riddler like slowly realizing he's a joke. Like as he's working with like King Tut, like another like complete joke of a character. And so I do like the idea of the villain hierarchy. Captain Boomerang's a great one for that. You know, like I mentioned the Tim Drake thing. So that's in Identity Crisis. And in that one, like Boomer is like washed up. He's like got a big pot belly and stuff. And he's like begging the Calculator for a job. And Calculator gives him this assassination job, which ends up being Tim Drake's dad.
Yeah.
And Boomer's like, I'm gonna get you to the top again, you know, you drongo or whatever. And he ends up getting shot by Tim Drake's dad. Like he kills Tim Drake's dad, but Tim Drake's dad kills him too. But he's just a complete loser. Like he's a burnout. Like no one wants to work with him. He's a bad guy. Everyone knows it. He's sort of king of the scumbags. Now, are you familiar with the Deathstroke Terra thing?
Only in the context of Teen Titans Go, and Terra is a jerk ass who breaks Beast Boy's heart, and it makes me very sad, and Raven hates her so much, and everyone's just kind of like,
You're about to be a lot more on Terra's side. So in the comics, there's an arc called the Judas Contract.
Okay.
And in this arc, Slade has decided he's going to go after the Titans and kill them all because he's holding them responsible for what happened to his son, Grant.
Okay.
And part of that is that he uses Terra to infiltrate the team so he can learn about all their weaknesses. He can learn how to take them down and stuff like that. And they're hooking up. But she's 15 and he's like 50 in that.
Gross.
Yeah, it's bad.
Gross.
So that's a really bad, gross one.
I thought she was meant to be his daughter.
Terra? No, that's Ravager.
Ravager. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, let's see. Other like scumbags, like villains that other villains look down on. I think
well, the comedian, of course. Well, he's a super never mind, he's meant
a hero.
He's meant to be a hero.
That whole book is really questions what that
but like
means.
Biggest scumbag of the DC universe, you know?
Scumbag of the DC universe.
It's not necessarily super. That question is not necessarily super.
No, I agree. You can throw comedian in there for sure.
This is hard. This is hard.
It is tricky.
Clary and the Witch Boy. Every
scumbag.
Well, no. Person that other villains look down on.
I mean, I think
every cartoon I've ever watched,
your experience with him is Young Justice mostly.
Yeah, and most of the time they're like, "Oh, fuck this kid."
I mean, kind of, because he's sort of bratty in that, but you know, Vandal Savage holds him in pretty high esteem just because of his power. I would say, oh man, I mean, listen, I'm trying to avoid obvious things. Like there's a villain called Sleaze, who's like a New Gods villain. There's a sort of famously bad kind of Action Comics issue where Sleaze tries to make Barda and Superman make a sex tape together.
Great. Love that.
That's like part of Darkseid's big plan. Like Sleaze is an obvious scumbag, but that's not really, you know, that's like kind of low hanging fruit. I think. What about? I think Jervis Tetch, Your Call is good because there's a lot of stories that kind of like imply the like pedophilia thing. Like he sure is interested in young girls.
Well,
you know?
and this is just an offshoot. This is not.
Dr. Light would be a good one for that. notorious rapist and whatever. Like Dr. Light's pretty gross.
All I keep thinking about is the Tim Burton penguin.
Oh, sure.
French flipper trick will haunt my dreams forever.
There's the pussy I've been looking for.
I think to fill her void. That one. Poor Jan Hooks.
Him putting
R.I.P.
the button on that one
co-ed
woman.
That was the one young co-ed.
Yeah, he's pretty gross.
Reaching out, touching them, groping them. Yeah.
Scumbags.
Yeah, there's like and like scumbag, like for example, like back when we were kids, like scumbag meant a lot different than like what I think of a scumbag now as an adult.
Totally. I mean, I don't want to keep circling back to him, but to me, Boomerang is the perfect one.
Yeah.
Because he's low level. He's a crook as opposed to like a mad supervillain.
Mm-hmm.
B, he's like gross, like he's disconcerting and gross and stuff like that. And then he's also like, he has like limited respect even for himself. Like there's sort of 3 tiers of how unpleasant he is to be around or with.
I have a odd question, sort of in the same vein, thinking like scumbag. This could be villain or hero. Who has pulled the most like double crosses and effing over teammates?
Oh, fuck.
In the DC universe that you would think of.
The most double crosses?
Yeah, like that type of scumbag. Like you couldn't have him on the team. You want him on the team, but he's going to sell you out for a bag of chips.
Technically, most double crosses might go to someone like Joker.
Okay.
Because at a certain point, everyone tries to work with Joker, or Joker works with them for a bit, and he just gets... It's not always necessarily like a planned double cross. Sometimes he just gets bored, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably someone like the Joker. It's not really scumbag territory, but like Amanda Waller is probably like a good candidate for most.
She's totally scuzzy
for most double crosses.
Yeah, she's scuzzy as hell.
I don't know if that I don't see her as a scumbag. She's duplicitous. She's manipulative. She's untrustworthy. But she's like, if she like dresses nice, she acts professional. Like to me, scumbag is like a dirtier, grimier, worse, less respectful.
But think about the types of stuff she does.
No, I'm not saying what she's doing is good, but I don't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call her a scumbag. Like if I had to describe her, right?
Okay. Well, then there you go. There's lots of scumbags in the DC universe.
It's funny because like you'd think on the surface Lobo, but he's not a scumbag at all.
He's got a heart of gold.
Lobo loves dolphins. He's got a code of honor,
He is skillful and resourceful. He enjoys fixing things instead of breaking things.
Well, I don't know. He kind of enjoys breaking things too.
I know, but he always fixes as much as he breaks. At least what I've found and what you've told me from storylines.
I mean, some stuff.
And also my video games. He always fixes things. But that's just
Lobo?
Yes. He comes in my one Lego game and
he fixes things?
Well, he wants to help stop the madness.
Oh, okay.
And he's also sweet.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. There we go.
There you go, Golden Ganji.
So
basically we agree with you. It's Captain Boomerang. Search the universe. I defy you to find a scumbag bigger than Captain Boomerang.
Challenge accepted by the listeners. Yeah. All right. So our final question for the night is from the ye old doc score.
Oh shit. Fuck. I always have to come up with a fucking song for this. Boy, oh boy.
Love this for you.
Doc scored. Doc scored. Doc scored. Doc scored.
For you listeners at home, fun fact, the doctor has found a new age version of Hanson's MMMBop.
They just dropped it like a week ago or 2 weeks ago.
That features now grown-up Hanson and this other band that I will never remember.
Called Busted?
Yes.
They barely feel like a band.
So, fun fact, that has been on repeat in the car during our child's bath time.
I should have said Doc. Oh, what an idiot.
All around the house. So,
son of a bitch.
For those of you who have forgotten about MMMBop, maybe give it a listen and maybe it'll be your earworm and annoy your wives. We'll see what happens. So anyway, the question from
No one out there has a wife.
so the dog score comes from listener First Mage. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I mean that's how I would say it.
There you go. First Mage asks, with their on-demand access to time bubbles, how are the Legion of Superheroes not invincible? First question from me: what the hell is a time bubble?
A time bubble is a time travel device. You actually see a time bubble in the first season of The Flash. Remember they rebuild that thing for Wells so he can go to. That's a time bubble.
Oh, okie dokes. So yeah, so how are the Legion of Superheroes not invincible?
So, the Legion, I mean, comes from an era of publishing where there's a lot of very wholesome. We have rules and we stick to them. And the Legion, even by the standard of DC superheroes, have like a lot of rules that they stick to. So time manipulation, they don't do. With the heavy asterisk of basically like abducting Superboy for a number of years and then returning him to the moment that they left him. But in general, like every time they do that, there's sort of like someone goes like, "You're not supposed to do that," and they go, "I know." So in general, the Legion like doesn't fuck with time that way. They can travel through time. The time bubble lets them do that, but they're not in the business of time travel as problem solving. And you can infer that they also know that there's challenges to that. From every other time travel thing we got from like Rip Hunter or Booster Golds or the Flash or things, use all of that continuity. It's safe to say the Legion probably knows that some moments in time are concrete. You can't change them. So Booster Gold trying to go back and stop Blue Beetle from getting shot in the head, or trying to stop Barbara Gordon from getting shot by the Joker, or stuff like that.
Barry Allen's mom, is that concrete as well?
Barry Allen's mom is concrete in time. When he went back in Flash, like he stopped it in Flashpoint, it shattered reality. So there's moments that cannot be changed with, heavy asterisk exceptions.
Well, one last question.
Sure.
Does that apply to Krypton blowing up?
Krypton blowing up, yeah.
Yeah, like when the Teen Titans try to stop it. And
there's a story in Action Comics in the high 900s or something like that, or whatever, called Booster Shot, in which Booster Gold has to stop Superman from trying to prevent Krypton's explosion. So yes, some of those things are solidified in time. And then also for things that even aren't, who knows what the repercussions would be, right?
Yeah.
So, and the Legion also experiences time manipulations like aggressively, because there's this thing where like the farther away from a change you are, the bigger the change will be.
Yes.
So if a change is made 10 minutes ago, most of, if we went back in time 10 minutes and did one thing differently, most things would continue the same way.
Yeah.
We can't see all of the, repercussions, but for the most part, things continue mostly the same way, especially if it's not like a huge change. But 1,000 years from now, did that small change that we do have an insane cascading effect? Probably, relative to its size, yes. And so the Legion, every time something happens in the 21st century and there's a crisis, and there's a whatever, the Legion gets hit super fucking hard by it. And part of that is not necessarily intentional. It's writers changing things and publishers changing things. But the result in universe is that every time there's a crisis or a time thing, the Legion gets the fucking like shit kicked out of them by continuity changes and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's basically that the answer to this is they got a moral code, they have an ethical code, and they also they know changing time makes things worse.
Yeah.
So even if it's a thing to, it's not to say they haven't tried it sometimes. They absolutely have.
And it's always worse.
There's a great little story in the Justice League Canada kind of era of the Justice League of America where the Legion came back. It's called the Infinitus Saga. Some Legionnaires come back in time to try and destroy Ultra, the multi-alien, way back in time before he could ruin their future. So, sometimes they do attempt to do those things, but in general, I think they just know it's the wrong move,
Yeah. Well, there you go.
There you go.
So no amount of time bubbles will make anyone invincible if they have a strong moral compass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Way to go, Legion.
Yeah. They're good. They're good kids in the
Oh,
Legion.
oh, shucks.
Yeah.
Well, and there you go. That is all the questions from the listeners for today's episode.
That's it for this first Fanagar Fanstravaganza mailbag app for the year. For this year. Thank you for joining and helping out.
I love coming here. You know that.
Thank you, my wife.
Have an awesome evening, everybody.
Yeah, and you know where to find us on social media, either Dr. DC Podcast or at Dr. DC. You can send questions to Dr. DC Podcast at gmail.com. drdcpodcast.com or .ca is our website. patreon.com/drdc. All the levels, $1, $5, $7 give you access to the Docscord. And of course, throughout this month, over on Twitter, we have the Fanagar Tournament of Pandering happening right now. On Patreon, we have the Second Chance Tourney. There's bonus episodes. There's extra stuff. Fast X. Hey, if you're a Golden Age patron and you've been listening to Toretto Talks, the Fast X episode is about to drop, baby. So hold on to your fucking seatbelts that we don't wear in these movies. But yeah, stay tuned tomorrow for the annual episode, and then there'll be these shorter episodes every other day this week. So
can't believe it's been what, 6 years?
6 years.
6 years.
Insane.
Oh my gosh. Your marriage to Richard is almost as long as ours.
I know. It's
Check
crazy.
that out.
Adios.
Take care.
This was a Brain Freeze podcast.